All right. Hey, contracts, closing, risk, and revenue. Caleb, our guest today, explains the systems that keep real estate deals moving forward and a special announcement, too. So, Caleb, welcome to the GoFCO channel. How are you?
Thank you. It's an honor. I really appreciate that the client experience is the forefront of your acronym there.
I love it. I love, yeah, it's an interesting thing because without that, right, you quickly find out how fast you're going to be out of business if you don't know how to do that well. So,
I don't know. Maybe I'm just a bad customer, but I am constantly surprised at the customer. I'm like, has anybody sat on the other side of the chair there? Like, I sometimes feel like I'm just a jerk, so I just keep my mouth shut a lot of times. But I'm like,
yeah.
I'll I'll just go build my own and I'll do it better.
Well, that's one way, right? And I think, it's cool that you would give feedback. I mean, I don't know if the Ask Jeeves and Yelps of the world have been like increasingly better for business, but I will say the feedback from a customer, when I had my own business, I would love to hear like, hey, this thing went wrong, so I can
Oh
kind of
yeah.
pivot, right, and stuff like that. So I would say, I mean, don't keep quiet, keep on going, man. Share
Yeah,
the
it
wisdom.
it depends. If I've got access to the owner of the business, I'll reach out for an owner to owner, a manager to manager touch point. Like, hey, I just used you guys. If you'd want feedback, I'm happy to give it.
Sure.
But if you're not looking for feedback, see you later. And so I
That's true too.
I like having those conversations because I can learn too. Like, what are the challenges that led to this? Because I'm trying to improve and avoid problems in the future too. So,
Of course. No, no. So, but look, we love to start with the journey, understanding kind of the ideation of Creative TC. And then obviously you have a big announcement as well that we'd love to be a part of. And thanks for unveiling it at the GoFCO channel here. So, share with us, were you a, corporate America guy? Were you always an
hmm.
entrepreneur? Where did these feelings and enterprise, enterprise and entrepreneurial things start?
It's interesting when you ask a question a different way that something new comes to mind. So yeah, I have been an entrepreneur basically my whole life. I
Uh,
uh, I cut down trees and cleaned up logs in my parents' backyard in the woods that they had, and I built a paintball course because I wanted to play paintball, and that's expensive for a young teenager. So I did all that and borrowed money from my dad to buy extra guns and equipment, and I invited people over and rented out my equipment so that I could play without having to rely on my parents to take me somewhere, and I could do it at break even. And so basically, I was able to play paintball for 6 or 7 years through my teens at
wow.
practically zero cost. So I've been an entrepreneur for a long time. Coming out of that, I started working residential construction, so I learned houses. I moved to college for a couple of years, got some gen eds, and then I ended up working at a prison for 5 years. So
Hmm.
physical security. And I escaped from prison. But when I found IT, I found a boot camp that was like 4 month turnaround. I loved it. Jumped into that, upgraded to cybersecurity as I worked in the industry. And then I became an accidental landlord, a single family home. I couldn't sell it. I refinanced it and put a renter in and bought the house that I wanted. Read Rich Dad Poor Dad, classic.
Mhm.
Who hasn't had that as part of their journey? But that was the oh wow, gee. So I became a real estate investor, and then when I got in and started seeing and touching all the things, and I discovered Creative Finance, which is you leave your loan in place, and I'll make your payments for you to dumb it way down. I'll take over your loan payments, but you give me the house. I got into that, and it was fun, and it was very cool. I like helping people. So when creative finance is not what you turn to first. And so it's very interesting to me. And I like that I can help people out of tough situations by taking over their payments and helping them get back on their feet somewhere else. And so as I got into that, I noticed there's a lot of room for people to do each other dirty in those situations because that's a pretty complex relationship. And that can happen either on purpose. So if you're a dirtbag, you can pull one over on people, or if you're just absent-minded or inexperienced, you can accidentally do that and harm somebody. And I thought there's got to be a light. Who's the lighthouse here? Title companies aren't doing it. So people are just out there signing paperwork and taking it to title companies, and they just close. They're just bakers. You give them the recipe, and they bake up what you ordered. And if you didn't order it ethically, they don't bake it ethically. They don't
Hmm.
close an ethical deal just because you put it under contract. And I'm like, good grief, somebody has to be the lighthouse out here. So I built what wasn't there for me when I was trying to get the guidance. I started Creative TC, which is Creative Transaction Consulting. And we learn this much information, and I train my people this much information so that we can serve your deal, which is only this big on any portion of the spectrum of what's involved in a creative finance deal.
Hmm. creative finance over the last probably 5, 6 years. I think it's the subject two, right? Is that is
Oh
that
yeah.
a is that
Yeah.
a big Pace, I believe his name is. He's blown up on social, and
Yep.
and there's a lot of things, right? I remember Carlton Sheets
Yeah.
back in the day of real estate in the early '90s, and I remember these things, and I've admittedly not been a big real estate guy. Here and there, I've invested in obviously my own home and all those types of things in a summer home. But, really, real estate is a mechanism to wealth building, but it also doesn't have to be just traditional, right?
Yeah.
So it's interesting that you bring it up in a different type of, sense. Can you give us, maybe a couple, two, three verticals that, were part of that creative TC, inception and the business side?
Verticals. Give me another word.
Yeah.
Help me
So,
out.
what are you doing that is a little bit different than just traditional
Oh, sure.
buying
Okay.
in that scenario?
So, Creative TC is a service provider in the real estate space, and so when you have a deal, you could bring it to us, and we'll help you do it safely. So, effectively, project management and consulting for these non-standard deals. If you're using traditional bank loans or hard money lenders, there's no need to interact with us. If you're doing a cash deal, no need to interact. So, we do the transaction coordination at the base level, which is just being an administrative assistant, making sure the paperwork is right and timelines are hit. But also, we're helping make sure that the seller has a good understanding of, hey, your credit's still tied to this loan. So if your buyer doesn't make payments, it hurts your credit, not theirs. Do you
Hmm.
understand that? Right. And I want from the seller plain language explanation of what is the transaction you've agreed to? Why are you in this transaction? Because it should make sense. People don't do creative if there's not a story behind it. So most of what I do is specifically this super tiny niche. If you're doing a deal where somebody else's credit or loan stays in place, or seller finance, or a lease to own, like a sandwich lease option, that's my world. We just
Okay.
work in that one spot, and I've segmented very closely down to just that, so that I can serve that niche with excellence. And what I found is also a lot of times you should be turning to an attorney and not me, but I can't find any attorneys who have the depth of experience and know best practices. They know how to say, that looks risky, that looks risky, that looks risky. I wouldn't do it. Like that's the most I can get out of
Mm.
most attorneys. I've got a couple in my pocket that I love. Um, but dude, people need service fast and they need guidance fast because you're less than 30 days away from closing by the time they find me. And so we're there to hold your hand and help you make informed decisions as you do this strange thing.
So, look, I mean, obviously, it's a unique business, as they say, the riches are in the niches.
Yeah.
But so you developed a business out of a necessity that there is this education, right? And that's big. But you're in this space, so tell us a little bit about the formation of Creative TC, right? I love the TC and everything that you've kind of built into that, name itself. But when you're in the process of it, how did you discover, were you doing deals and then, as you said, you discovered three or four different ways that you would have done it better? Was that just the emphasis of the business
Yeah.
creation? Okay.
100%. So I joined a wholesaler team, which is the people who call and make cash offers on single family homes. I joined a couple of their teams as a commission only. Like if I close a deal, I get a cut. I'll turn your trash into cash, right? You make a cash offer on a house and they say no and they've got low equity, it's probably a candidate for a creative finance deal. So I'll go make those offers and follow up and get them under contract. I got the training and I figured out how to get them under contract and what promises to make. And
Mm,
when it came to closing, I'm like, where's the paperwork that honors my promises? Uh, I don't, too bad, Caleb, you're not in control of the deal anymore. And I'm like, no, 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 my word's attached to this.
yeah.
My identity and brand and word is attached to this. And so I forced them to do the way it should have been done. But that was when I started seeing that gap like, good grief, you can really take advantage of people. And so that was the formation of Creative TC. I went from doing deals, I made some assignment fees, I bought a house or two, and then I converted to nope, my full focus is building a service company to make real estate safe, legal, and ethical. And that's my mission. That's like I can say that for the next 100 years. Creative TC's mission is safe, legal, and ethical real estate.
I love it. Well, look, and was part of this creation just to kind of form the way that you molded the business into a real business? Was it SaaS related? Was it services with you pulled in some new experts, people that you connected to, alignment of individuals to create the business, or what was those beginning steps in the first 90 days or so of creating Creative TC?
I was the business to start with, right? I've got the
Okay.
knowledge and I've got the ability to research. I read legal cases for fun, even though I'm not an attorney. Like it's interesting to me, like the
Yeah.
technicalities and the what ifs. So I was the business for the first 90 to 180 days. And the plan was to bring other people on board as I trained them. So I trained in one of the real estate communities, other people, just sharing what I learned as I learned. Because again, my mission is safe, legal, and ethical real estate, which means more people need to know about it, know how to
Hmm.
do it right and safe. And so from the people that were in my audience, I recruited subcontractors. And so I was basically, what I explained to them was, I'll build a buffet table, you come eat. I'll attract the business. There's going to be food on the table. Come pick the contracts you want, serve those people in my name, in my style, to my standards, and you'll take a cut. And so
Hmm.
that was the business model for the first, I don't know, almost year, and it was growing and it was harder to control the work product with contractors and they would cherry pick. And so I gave everybody a call at one point and said, you need to become an employee or step out because I need more control. I need more complete, exact. My brand is on the line here. I need control. And so I lost a lot of contractors and a couple of people became employees. But in the niche area that we're doing, I've had to hire and train people directly, and it's a long training cycle. So it's not an easy business model. And if I could go back and tell myself, hey, maybe put this one off till later, you'd probably be better off starting a title company or some other real estate endeavor first. From a
Hmm.
business and profitability standpoint, I would have been better off. But I love the work. I love the brand. I love the history and the reputation we've built and what we've accomplished. So no regrets there.
Well, moving parts are part of any business, right?
Yeah.
And certainly certain businesses are more complex, take some, some maneuvering inside of those parts and ISO or, isolating certain things. When you think about now looking at it, from a perspective of you started as kind of a solopreneur, right? You learned under a mentorship program per se. You go on your own, you do it in a better way. You've mentioned brand and reliability and ethics plenty times already, just in the first few minutes of the podcast.
That's not
So,
important to me.
no, yeah, I mean it's certainly right. I mean that's something that will follow you, and it's part of the way that you communicate, right? So, what were the marketing tools that you used up front in that first year to 2 years of building out Creative TC?
I'm not a good example for other people in this case. I was inside several gated communities, like
Okay.
mentorships, and I had access and exposure there. And I I learn by teaching, so I find things to learn, and then I share the results with other people. So
Mm.
people are like, Caleb, you're always giving value. It's weird to say this, but that's what happens is I give and I teach and I train and I establish my authority by just being genuine and sharing and helping other people, which results in people saying, I want to work with that guy. Oh, I have a question, send up the bat signal. Literally, people just tag me. Any hard question comes up in some of these groups and I get a bunch of Facebook notifications. It's just tag Caleb Christopher, and I'll pop in, record a selfie video answering the complex question and drop out. It's like pop in and do a mic drop. And so that's
Hmm.
how I establish authority. That's not great marketing, but I'm in a really super niche of a business. I don't know how to market otherwise. I don't know how to reach people who are on the cusp of, I mean, a fraction of a percent of the entire real estate transactions across the nation. How do I find that fraction of a percent of people when they're ready to buy without a massive marketing budget to just always be out there all the time?
Hmm.
I don't know how to find those people right before they become clients. But as I've developed a customer profile, it's mostly people who are in their first through fifth, maybe up to their 10th creative deal, where I provide the most value. And when I can provide maximum value to those people because they need guidance. Every time they do a deal with me, they come out a little more mature and eventually they graduate. And that's
Hmm.
the business model, right? I didn't understand that until I got in and started doing all the things. I'm okay with that. I'm happy, and I would refuse to provide any less value just so that they would be customers longer. That's not okay. So that's who my customers are, and I have a short life cycle to collect revenue. while we provide really good value. But how do I find? It's constantly hunting for that entry level person in the industry.
Well, and you shared something so innovative, right? And really thought provoking. Go for Show community. If you're listening intently, he talked about CAC, customer acquisition
Oh yeah.
cost, and being in these organic groups. Now, the groups, did you have some sort of pay model that you had to be a subscribed
No,
person in it?
some of them are free groups, some of them are
Okay,
paid, but they were paid one time. Like I'm just like anybody else in the groups, and the groups
sure.
are they're pretty strong with the no promotion. So
Mm-hmm.
the only way I can promote is to genuinely give value and help people out.
100%. No, and that's where the nugget, the secret is, right? A lot of people on LinkedIn and on Facebook and all these groups, intentionally go in there and start promoting, and they either get kicked out or they're, incognito, right? They're DMing you on the back end and doing stuff like that. But
Yeah.
I love the way that you did it. And obviously, yes, it does take a longer sales cycle. I will selfishly say, as a commercial banker, I do something called Over the Hump Wednesdays with your commercial banker, John Andrade, on LinkedIn. And it literally is nothing about promoting. It's more about, hey, do you know about accounts receivables? How do you do 90-day aging reports? How do you show a bank that you're lendable? Blah, 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 all these types of things.
I
And
like that.
and it's become something that people, jokingly, I'm going to a seminar today, and I know there'll be two or three people like, hey, I saw you on LinkedIn and you shared this video and da da da. So I love that nugget of wisdom. And there has to be patience with it because,
Yes, it's a
you know,
long grind.
it's
And
it's
that's
like,
I
yeah.
think we could spend some time on that because I mean, we talked right before the show. This podcast for you is one of those things that gets the constant, gradual exposure, which establishes authority. It's hard to trust somebody you haven't seen a bunch of times.
Yeah.
It's hard to trust somebody who Google can't be like, oh, yeah, I know who that person is. They do this, this, and this, and they're well known for ABC, and here's their reviews, right? That it's, guys, take this to heart. The customer experience, I love that whole concept. I'm all about that customer experience, which also means I've earned a 5-star review by the time I'm done serving that person because I know
Mm,
that I will always provide more value than I charge for. And we charge a lot, but I give a lot more value. And we have ongoing relationships with our customers. We call after closings and say, how was your experience? I jealously want feedback, especially negative
sure.
feedback, because I can't get any out of anybody. But I want that because if there's anything I can improve, I want to know about it. Uh, but if they give a good review verbally, we have a recorded phone call, and I have the person say, can I take the transcription of this and drop it in an email for you so you can copy paste that back into our Google review? Oh, yeah,
Oh,
sure.
sweet.
Like
Yeah.
I'm leading with value by making it easy. I'm not saying, hey, thanks. I'm glad you had a good experience. Now go write an essay for me.
Mm,
Don't do that to people. Make it as easy as possible and say, I'll send you the email, the summary. I took notes. I'll send you the email. It's your own words. If you wouldn't mind, just click the link at the top, copy paste that in a 5-star Google review for us. It would mean the world to us. And guess what? I've got 250 5-star essay style reviews. Only 5 stars, almost all essays. Nobody else
wow.
has that.
Wow. What another nugget. I'm just thinking through, I'm like, man, that is genius. You've already put it together. When the book launched in October, a lot of my friends and people that knew me kind of started initially buying the book, and then some of the organic, growth came from that. But it's interesting. I've never thought of it as like when somebody calls me or texts me to take that same text, maybe chat GPT it in a way with their own
Yeah.
words, send it back to them, and then go, hey, easily go to Amazon. There's a little bit of a nuance with
Yeah.
Amazon because you have to verify that you bought the book and stuff like that. But interesting. Wow, what a great concept. And ladies and gentlemen, that you're listening to this. You own a business. You're listening to Chris talk, or to Caleb talk about, how to genuinely take a conversation and transpose it into something that they could easily do one, two, three. So
Yeah,
really, really
don't
cool
give them
part.
homework. I mean,
Yeah.
let them do you a favor, right? But make it
Yeah.
as easy a favor as possible. Click,
Yeah.
copy, paste. Thank you. Love you.
Love it. Love it. What a gem. So, look, obviously you had some experience. You attached yourself to great groups. You became the value add of a group and distinguished yourself, not just as another guy or gal, putting out information to then try to coerce someone to sell them in some sort of product or service, right? So you differentiated yourself that way. But now as a business owner, you got to think, all right, scalability, understanding leadership, funding, all these types of things. And it sounded like you kind of bootstrapped the first one, this first creative TC, and you got to a point where you started making real money. So what did that look like, for your scalable side? Because offline, you kind of shared with me, you've taken a step back and now have a cool announcement and a new company that you're coming out with, or that maybe you already started. But what did that leadership component to you mean? Because now you were the guy heading the organization.
One of my major challenges, and if you're going to establish yourself as an authority, you are the brand and the brand is you. That's a major challenge if you're trying to build a business that you work on and not in.
Hmm.
Very difficult. For me, it was very difficult. How do I make this brand be what people love and want to follow instead of just being Caleb that they want to follow? It's tough. It's very difficult. And so I can install a new manager, and I've tried to have other people start making social media content. It just, unless you find somebody who loves the topic, loves the business, and loves being on camera and has a passion like you, well, they would probably go found their own business, by the way, then you're going to have a
Hmm.
hard time separating the brand from you. So one of my techniques for doing that, and I've installed management at Creative TC. It's something. It takes a long time when you're bootstrapping and you can't hire professional management because I don't even. It just is. And one of the tactics I've taken is to take my brand and turn it into a parent brand. And so Creative TC, TC can stand for a lot of things. And so my little entrepreneur brain has 4, 5, 6, 7 companies already existing that don't exist in the real world. But Creative Transaction Consulting is number one. But under the same logo, branding and visual styles, Creative TC now also stands for Creative Title Company. And so
Mm.
after installing management, I was able to put my focus on evaluating and making offers on title companies for sale, which I would have switched to my branding. I looked at six, made offers on three. None of that went through. Uh, my first company constantly deals with title companies. And again, it's another thing where I'm like, I can do better. The customer
Hmm.
experience is lackluster. There's a lack of expertise. They get the job done, right? I'm not complaining about the industry. They get the job done, obviously, and they can ensure their work. But I don't think the customer experience is what it could be. And so a title company was next on my radar. And I have started a title company. So it's Creative TC, which stands for title company in this case. And we're in Colorado. We launched it, soft launched in October, and we're full launch. I'm actively recruiting for a head of marketing and a head of sales. Why can I do that? Where? Oh, it's nice to have money. We actually raised capital for this one, and I sold 10% of the company for $300,000.
Hmm.
And it's nice to have capital. I can actually hunt for professionals with experience to step in. And it's really hard for me coming from bootstrapping into being funded. It's hard for me not to just stop and do the work. Oh, it's easy. I don't have to turn my brain on. I can just sit down and do the marketing work. I can build flyers and posters and write content and record videos, and I can call people and try to make sales. That's not the highest and best use of me, the CEO, the founder, the president, whatever you want to call it. I'm reluctant to call myself a CEO when we're not, like $3 to $5 million. I think it's kind of silly for a small company. So I avoid using CEO. But my job is to find and inspire and hold accountable the right people, not to be down doing the work. And
No,
that's hard.
that is, it's definitely, well, and it's because the mindset of someone that goes on their own that was in something says to themselves, I could do it better. I'm the guy or gal. And the problem and the trap there is that then every hat that you wear in a business is on you, right? So I love the way that you said that. Now, I'm not going to let you skim over some because my banker hat goes, oh, okay, 10%, 300,000. This business is worth, as far as value, 3 million, right? If you multiply it by 10, right?
Pre-revenue.
So you valued your business based on a 10% investment of 300,000. That's what the multiplier Go for CEO community. So I want to give the secret here, right? And tell me if I'm wrong. The Creative TC original company created such momentum over the years that now you get the light switch to go, oh, TC title company, and instantly there's value placed on that company because of, is it because of some of the business and many of the flow that comes from Creative TC number one that goes will now go into right into the title company?
Yes, you nailed it. And what's interesting is one of my partners said, "Congratulations, you have a $3 million company and you're pre-revenue." And I said, "What are you talking about?"
Love
He
it.
said, "Dude, 10% of your company and people are buying it for $300,000. That says the public, at least these people, value your pre-revenue company at $3 million." I said, "Oh, wow, that's incredible." And I started looking back, and part of my pitch was exactly those things. Okay, I have a reputation for really high standards. They're buying into that. My company has a reputation for follow through, and over the last 3.5 years has established a track record that no one can match. We've got those testimonial style 5-star reviews. I said, "Look, I've done it before. I'll do it again. Join me, fund me so that I can go do it faster. I don't need you. I'm gonna bootstrap this if you guys don't show up and fund. That's fine. That's the path for me then. I'm doing this thing with or without you. I'd love to have people on board. I would love to speed up the time frame in which we accomplish this. Here's the projected returns slash pro forma slash ABC. But we get to borrow the brand equity, or maybe not borrow, but we get to leverage brand equity because we
Mhm.
already have a name known for excellence. And we're in the same vertical. So it's an area, it's just adding a lane. It's not changing directions. It's not a new venture. It's just adding a lane to what I'm already doing. And so all of that stuff worked synergistically for me to be able to make that pitch.
No, it's the equivalence of a flywheel, right?
Oh,
Understanding
yeah.
where this client can come in the journey, the client experience and client journey, and then all of a sudden they creative TC at the beginning of a deal or the creativity of it. Then they're hitting the title company, and I'm curious if you'll unveil what the other TCs will be, but
Oh,
that's
sure.
pretty awesome that you've put it together and thought about it, instinctively, like, hey, where else can I help a client? Because I think a lot of people in finance and real estate, in manufacturing, forget that that customer is going to go buy other services and products. So why not be, if you
Why
can
not me?
dial it in? Yeah, if you could
Yeah.
dial it in. Obviously, you don't want to sell real estate and then all of a sudden buy a crumble cookie franchise, right? So, as an example. But if it makes sense, where are the verticals within your business? And most businesses probably have 3 to 5 good verticals that they
Yeah.
could implement. So I
Yeah.
love
And
it.
I mean, the way I approached it is from an ethical standpoint, how many times can I get paid on the same transaction? As a
Mm-hmm.
business owner, how many times? Because I know I'm going to do a better job than other people. And if I don't believe that, then I probably shouldn't be the founder, right? I believe that I can do a better job. But I do want to go back to something that I think is really important about darn, I should have wrote it down. Such is life. I'll hit it in a second and I'll interrupt you and be like, this.
No, no worries, no worries. So, look, you shared a little bit about the leadership side. You've shared a little bit about, creative marketing, right? The way that you have implemented yourself into groups, Facebook, and nonetheless other things that you maybe even paid for. Leadership can then go, okay, hey, I've got people in place, and what are they doing? Their systems. So, can you share with us what were some tools that maybe you used to be able to? Was it as simple as some Excel spreadsheet, Word documents, Google Docs? Things that help you start to formulate a business and get systems for these people to come in and learn what you do.
Mm. Oh, I actually recruited staff from company number one as well. My foundational key personnel at the title
Okay.
company came from the consulting company. And so that sped up my process, the familiarity of training people. That's how I was also going to be able to bootstrap is I didn't have to pay somebody $80,000 a year pre-revenue to just be there and be able to do the work. So
Mm.
another factor in how we were able to accelerate and launch. The What was the question?
Well, just again,
Oh,
what were the
systems.
systems that you put in, to help you, even from the
Yeah.
first creative TC launch, right? Once you started to develop the understanding, like, hey, I need people besides just myself,
Yeah.
what did you start to do? What were the tools, and how did you learn some of these processes?
The number one thing was for me in a consulting group, a consulting firm, the number one thing is that all the people have to know all the things. So it really comes down to education. Now, meeting facilitation, requirements elicitation, like how can I interview you and draw out the truth behind what you say you want and you need. So a little
Mm.
bit of training and practice there and awareness, but mostly it's constant training and work over my shoulder. What I used to do was call working out loud. We're a remote company. And so in Zoom, yeah, this is one of my key systems. And a lot of people are like, oh, I've never thought of it that. I mean, we use Zoom, but not like that. So we actually have 15 breakout rooms in Zoom, which is a feature. I have the paid version of Zoom for one or two accounts. And we host an all day meeting all day, every day. So if you go to zoom.creativetc.io, you'll land in my virtual office and my receptionist will say, oh, hi, welcome to Creative TC. How can I help you? It's like a front lobby. Okay.
Mm.
From there, all of my employees are co-hosts. And so we can see the list of breakout rooms. We can see who's in, whether their camera's on, whether their mic is on, whether they're talking. And so if I want to go visit Judy and she's in conference room 2, I click join, I show up, and then it's you and me side by side. And I'm like, hey, Judy, got a quick question. Cool. Actively collaborates
Mm.
day in and day out. Now we also have private offices, which is the same thing as I'm in an office and I shut the door and lock it. Like I'm busy, I'm working. People are generally expected to work in a conference room unless they have to focus. And part of it is recruiting the right people and training them. We're not the police. And if you make us be the police, you're not going to be here very long. You got to
Well,
know your stuff. You got to be independently capable of getting the work done. So I focused on finding and training people to be outcomes oriented rather than task oriented. I'm going to give you a checklist because that's part of what we do as a process. You need to have this as a guide, but it is just a guideline. When you encounter a creative finance transaction, there's a lot of variables and a lot of them are cascading. And so you need to know all the things. And the checklist, you need to be smart enough. You need to know enough to be able to change the checklist on your own because I don't care what work you've done. If the outcome is not accomplished, that's a failure. The
mm.
outcome is what matters, not the inputs. So a task list is just a tool. It is not, if you check every single box on this list, that doesn't mean you've succeeded at your job. You have to learn what the customer wants, needs, and is worried about and achieve that outcome. This checklist is one of the ways to help you accomplish that, but you independently have to accomplish that. So this company number one is very difficult. I would not recommend running a consultancy because you have to train and equip people and they independently have to be experts at managing a customer relationship and a project on their own. It's very difficult for me to systematize except to just provide educational resources, document templates, and twice weekly meetings with the team to make sure everybody's on the same page and shares lessons learned.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's a reason why the McKinseys and Deloittes and all that stuff have taken decades to build, based on, formats and processes and, bringing in recruits that burn out probably at 80, 90 hours a week type of things. And then, they either go on their own to buy a business or they just fizzle out of the
Yeah.
consultancy world, right? A lot of I forgot what the actual average life of a consultant is, but in that world, it's a burnout scenario, right? So,
I can imagine.
so
Another
it's
thing we did
yeah.
from business system standpoint was I paid. I'm aware of business or like process flow diagrams. I could do one, but I wanted some facilitation, and I wanted the facilitation to come in and meet with my team because a lot of what we do is in the minds of the people, so it's tribal knowledge and it's not documented. And a
Mm,
sellable company is one that has well documented processes so that you can drop
hmm
anybody in and they can reasonably expect to succeed. So we did some process diagramming, and we did with the rectangles and the decision diamonds and linking to procedures. But generally, it's a left to right swim lane diagram with receptionist does this. Like, so what is this process? It's the new client inbound visit, unscheduled visit process. All right, receptionist receives the person, greets them, asks a few questions, gathers information, then decides, do I put this to a salesperson or escalate to management or whatever? And that goes to those different lanes. And so, what do you do and what decisions do you make? And I paid a facilitator to, man, we probably paid 10 grand over a few months to
hmm
have him sit with my team and pull the processes out of the people. Because at that point, the company was mature enough that there were things happening that I hadn't even designed yet. It was just the natural outworking of great people getting the work done. And I'm like, we need to pull all this info out. So we paid to have that facilitation done, got some really good value out of it. I think the highest value is that we learned how to do it for ourselves as well. And so we continue doing that. And at the title company, it's one of my the things that I'm excited about. I nerd out about that sort of stuff though.
Well, and look, you've given such great knowledge. The nuggets that you've received Go for CO community in this interview, it takes 25, 30, 45 minutes that I do these interviews. And it's funny, sometimes we just pack in so much value. It's so cool because as a CEO founder, you get to recollect and go, oh, wow, this is the way I do it, or here's how you did it. And you shared a great nugget there about, I don't know, did you use a certain system like an EOS or something like that as far as the facilitator, or what was I guess, the context of that one?
No, I think they're familiar with EOS, but this was literally just process diagramming. Like
Okay.
pull the process out. Look, if you just look up swim lane diagram, you'll see a picture of what we're talking about.
Okay. And how did you resolve, I guess, did you interview three or four people? What was your way of kind of
Yeah,
looking at that?
I got quotes in interviews and looked at reviews. Reviews are critical. Go get them. Go ask for them. I looked at
Yeah.
reviews to see who would work out, but I'm pretty upfront about things when I'm negotiating with somebody and saying I want an exit because if I'm dissatisfied, I'll pay you for your time so far, but I'm not locking into a 6 month contract until you've proven yourself.
Love it. Love it. Awesome. Well, look, these are all decisions, right? As a CEO, founder, entrepreneur, to really understand it and giving the power to an entrepreneur. A lot of times I talk to entrepreneurs that say, hey, my founder gave me this opportunity and I'm running with it, right? This area of the business I own. And that's what I affectionately call an entrepreneur. So, all right, look, we've talked about different areas of the business. I know the title company is your newest baby.
Mhm.
What is differentiating the title company? And you're in Kansas City, right?
Mhm.
All right. And then you started the title company in Colorado. So help us understand that where's the dynamic? Did you see a footprint out there that just kind of made more sense? Obviously, with the pull and the momentum that you had from Creative TC number one.
It's a couple of factors. One of the first factors was that it's one of my busiest states from the consulting firm, and I have
Mm,
enough reputation and ongoing repeat business in the state to pretty close to break even without even advertising because people were asking me to start a title company,
mm,
which leads into the next reason I did it because the title when we're talking creative finance, not a lot of people understand it. Title companies are in the business of issuing insurance, which means they have to guarantee the results. And so if you're a risk manager and you're like, this is weird, uncommon, my people don't understand it, and I have to insure it, maybe just don't. Nah, I'm not going to do that. So there was a mass exodus of creative friendly title companies in the state. A lot of them, it's like those little underwater little things. When one of them moves, they all like dodge at once. The same thing happened with
oh,
the title companies. Whatever those
school
little,
of fish.
yeah, something like that, or those little worms that are coming out of the tubes or something. They all like, ooh,
Ah,
ooh, and they
okay.
all drop at once. That's what
Yeah,
happened. There was a creative finance scare, and all the title companies were like, oh, oh no, I'm
yeah.
out. So there's a massive vacuum of creative friendly title companies in the state. And then I looked at Colorado versus other states, and I don't know if you've ever worked for commission sales, but did you know title insurance companies get 85% of your premium at closing? That's a commission if I ever saw one. So Colorado is one of the higher commissions of the states. Some of them are as low as 70%, but they all take a fat cut of your insurance policy when you close, by the way. Um, so that was also attractive. And because it's a relatively high volume and high purchase price state, that means there's more transactions to choose from or to pull. And because the purchase price is high, insurance rate is based on that. So lots of little factors added up to, yeah, this is a great state for us to start with.
No, I love the analysis. I mean, first chapter of my book, I talk about assessing, right? And without that analysis, assess, you can kind of intertwine the words. But you took a model that had been successful with Creative TC number one, Creative TC number two with title company, flowed that business through, made something that would automatically worth $3 million. The marketplace told you that by the investment that they made with you as a partner, and now you're off to the races with a community that loves you, wants to do business with you, and is already thinking of you. So, what a great, great story here, ladies and gentlemen, to hear what Caleb has done and the positive sense of kind of the brand and everything that you've been able to put together. So, you know,
I remembered the thing. I remembered the
go
thing.
on. Yeah,
This
yeah.
is really important. If you're a founder, if you're a CEO, whatever it is, you have a vision that not everybody else has, clearly. Not everybody else can even get that. The better you get at casting a vision, the better people will work for you. Somebody told me, a mentor told me, Caleb, you can do anything, and that's the problem. What do you
Yeah.
mean? because you have the vision and you see it more clearly than anyone else ever will. You're generally capable on top of that, which means when it comes to marketing, you're going to be dissatisfied with the work of a marketer because they're not producing what's in your head. Yeah, you can spend 4 hours to produce a marketing flyer that looks exactly like it like locks into my vision and my plan and my values and the color scheme and all this stuff. Good for me. I spent 4 hours on that. I could have hired somebody who spent 1 or 2 hours and they would have produced a 70 or 60 or 70 or 80% alignment result. But I'm going to be dissatisfied with that because it does not, their work output doesn't align with this vision that I can't seem to pull out of my head. If you can't get over that, you will not grow. You have to be okay with not perfectly aligned work. You have to get better at casting your vision, at sharing what's inside of your head so that other people can grasp the same thing. And you have to be okay with giving some of your authority or brand identity to somebody else, or you won't grow.
I love it. It makes me think of Go for CO and even just the iterations of the website I've had. I've had three developers. The first one was very generic, kind of a Wix type model, where very cookie cutter. Second one, a little bit upgraded, and the third one, a gentleman that I actually know, family friend, and it's funny. Even this one, I'm still like you said, I'm like I wanted to say this and do this and da da da, but I'm non-technical at all. So I kind of, give it up. And I will say, even around my house, I'm sitting by a ceiling fan that I remember when I put it up, it wobbled, right? Until my electrician had to come in and put in three or four parts that I left, I guess, in the box, and I didn't know. So I've learned throughout the years that yes, that's 100% so true from a CEO founder that you have to be able to communicate. I know there's a lot of Instagram sponsored ads nowadays about communication and stuff, but it's so key. So, all right. Well, Caleb, look, as we end the interview, we like to talk about CEO, and I know you were very complimentary of C. So I'd love to hear the way that people from the creative TC, right, creative financing side of things, the creative TC title company now, what does that look like from a value proposition? And what do people sense when they come for the client experience for the first C?
I want to say that it's client advocacy. As a title company, that my paradigm shifted a little bit. Creative TC number one, client advocacy is one of the core values. Advocate for the client.
Mm,
That said, we have one party that we support that paid us, so we can do that. At the title company, we're a third party independent, basically a fiduciary role where we're entrusted with a transaction to uphold what was promised more than advocating for any individual client. But we can still incorporate a little bit of that into put yourself in other people's shoes. So what I shifted, and I agonize over core values so that I can hire, fire, train, and calibrate with them. That's part of the vision casting that I'm talking about. Our core values at the title company spell SCORE. It's speed, care, objectivity, resourcefulness, and excellence. The care is the one that gives me enough lateral room without crossing lines of my fiduciary role. And what we explain there is deals involve real people, act accordingly. Again, I'm going to hire adults that can understand and have independent judgment, but look at the transaction, look at the people involved. What do they want? What do they hate? What are they scared of? Speak to that. Be prepared. Get ahead of it. That's the customer experience for us. So, speed, deals die if you don't keep them moving. Care, there's real people involved, act accordingly. Objectivity, pressure distorts judgment. You have to decide with facts. My favorite thing about those three, I could do a whole sermon on this. My favorite thing about those three is that they balance one another out because if you have too much speed, you will lack care and you will lack objectivity. If you have too much care, you'll go too slow and you might decide on non-factual data. If you're too
mm.
objective, you're just a jerk. You can be fast, but you're not going to be caring. And then resourcefulness and excellence, kind of just independent values that go. But did I answer the question?
No, I love it. No, I mean, think about, someone hearing that clip, and we'll clip it up. That's one of the features that we have at the Go for CEO channels. We'll clip that piece and talk about it and put it out there into the internet. And when you hear that, you start to understand, what does that really mean for my client experience? What does that mean for my client advocacy? What does that really mean, as a CEO and founder? What do I expect from my team and the systems that are input, so that when that client comes in and for the first time experiences doing business with Creative TC, you've put an acronym that's dead on to what the way the expectation is. So I love it. So E, engagement. So this one always is a fun one. As a founder, CEO of a company, I'm always curious. How do you like to engage? Are you a dinner person? Do you take your team for retreats? Are you a person that takes the clients out? You do have personal relationships with each and every client. How do you engage is the biggest deal for me to explain.
I think I've dropped the ball here. When you ask it that way, um, for employees, I provide steady income, a great place to work, a great place to be from, right? I heard that from Netflix and I was like, oh, I love that. Whether you stay or go, I'm happy to be a part of your journey. So I do genuinely care about my employees. And so my engagement is part of our personnel reviews are PPF, personal, professional, and financial goals.
Mm.
And people will give me a goal like, I want to get better at ABC. I'm like, that's a professional, not a personal goal. Are you saving for a house or you want to have a kid? Like, help me understand you because I want to serve you as the business owner. So it's the culture that I can build is the thing that I can give. How I engage with my employees is caring about the culture and trying to preserve that and not letting anybody stay who violates our culture. With clients, I love dinner events, etc. Yeah, sure.
Okay. Well, look, I love that active side of things, right? Where you just said, it's very important for a lot of founders and CEOs of companies. When you think about, man, did I leave that person in my community, in my ecosystem too long? It could really leave a bad taste, a bad, growth of a cancer per se, right? So the understanding that you've developed throughout the years here to say that out loud that, hey, I can get rid of someone quickly based on understanding that they're not following score, they're not following the fundamentals of what we built, is a big deal. And I think people then want to be around that type of leader because they're like, hey, we're not going to get some rogue person into the Creative TC atmosphere, right? So that's
There
really
is
awesome.
a collective sigh of relief when the wrong person for the company is gone. And sometimes there's even thank yous.
That's awesome. That's a reality. And and look, we wish those people the best. They just
Yeah,
were not a good fit for Creative TC. They weren't a fit for Go for CO. They weren't a fit for whatever client I have as a commercial, right? Like
sure.
that's the reality. Like you're not putting that human being down. You're putting that puts a person in a better place.
I have
So
a I have a cringy, I think it's 10-minute video of me like crying and bawling
okay.
after firing somebody. And it's hard to even think back to it, but I had to deliver the message that we had tried to train and equip this person. And there's right person, wrong seat. This was just sorry, you don't have the capacity to do the job to the standards that we have. And it is a disservice for me to put you in front of clients. I cannot hand a client off to you and be happy or comfortable with that my responsibility to the client. And I'm sorry, you can't stay. And the woman pleaded for the job, pleaded for more time. We don't have the funds to hold her on and things like that. And right after I got done, I'm like, this is a CEO moment that I need to
Mhm.
capture for the sake of anybody else. Firing is hard and it's not fun. And
No.
I'm literally just, it's cringy, but it's a 5 or 10 minute cry video of like, I have to let this person go and it hurts.
Well, look, there's a master class right there, right? I mean, I feel that it's a learned skill, right? It's a habit that you have to get into, and it's if you want to grow, you have to have this component of your leadership quality. So, but no, I appreciate you being open and authentic about that engagement side, and even when you set back a little bit and said, "Oh, I missed the boat on some of this," it's a genuine moment for you, right? Like you're thinking, okay. Here's some other ways that I can improve, which is an awesome quality of yourself. So, all right, last one is operational excellence, right? You've mentioned a couple of the tools that you use, from the bootstrapping days to now investment. Are there any other tools right now? AI, Monday Doc, like these types of tools, EOS, that type of thing. What are some things that you're using that have really made you operationally excellent?
Again, because my business models are so dependent upon the people, They're less dependent upon process. Process is a guide for the people, but the people have to be experts in order to deliver the value and the customer experience that we've promised. A really important thing. Number one, get your core values dialed in. You can't just pick them, you have to mean them. And they have to
Mm.
mean something to you. And you have to be able to hire and fire and lose money over them by standing your ground on those values. And I've done all of those things before. But paired with that, we do the predictive index test, which is quick, like 6 minute, and it's free. And we do an Enneagram personality test. And so I have a spreadsheet where we have everybody, like almost 60 people now that have come and gone, who are still here, et cetera. And we categorize people as employed, voluntary termination, or involuntary termination. Because people are the most critical thing for me, I have to measure this and look for patterns so that we can be better at hiring, recruiting, and attracting the right people, at hiring and retaining the right people, and recognizing the non-fits and getting rid of them quickly. So understanding the personality types and their preferences, their motivations, that's pretty important. I've found a couple of personality types that consistently do not do well. They don't enjoy it here. The clients don't enjoy it with them. The coworkers don't enjoy it. And so it's better for everyone to avoid hiring those personality types in our company. That's pretty high value. And so my systems and highest operational excellence, as at the top level, management level, is equipping us to get the right people plugged in.
I love it. Well, look, I feel like I say this now as an author of a book. That is a book, that last part right there. I think there's such a demand for understanding what it takes to really evaluate, have a couple systems in place, and then repeat and rinse, repeat that process because a lot of people get stuck, right? I run into companies that are doing 15, 30, 40, $100 million companies. And it's interesting, the CEO, the decision maker, has some people that they're almost pulling along, like just trying to like, all right, hey, no, this, and it's noticeable, right? When I go into a company and I can kind of take that seat as a strategist, as a commercial banker on my day to day, I see it very plainly when they come in for a boardroom meeting or some sort of event and stuff. It's very interesting. So I love that you have that component, the way that you described your operational excellence into the people side, especially with your specific business. So tell people, Caleb, how to get a hold of you, what the best way is to interact with, Creative TC, one or two. What's those best ways to do business with you?
So I personally put out a monthly newsletter with my real financials because I own rental properties and a couple of businesses, and I'll post profits and losses, real numbers, no BS. Because I'll go anti-guru on this. They're all positivity, no reality. Yeah, you can take action to get started, but you don't really get support after. So calebchristopher.io, I have a newsletter where I share my lessons learned as a business owner. That's the first piece, and then has links to all my other companies. CreativeTC.io, you might start seeing a theme, and creativetitle.io. You can visit those too. If you're doing a creative finance deal, residential usually, you can have a free 15-minute consult. Remember my mission: safe, legal, and ethical. Part of that is I'll be a lighthouse. I'll offer free 15-minute consults to anybody that wants to walk in the door if you have a creative finance deal. So creativetc.io is where you can find that.
I love is I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, wow, I feel like this interview left me eating and filled, but also wanting more, right? So like that is like the perfect podcast. I'm super excited. You nailed it, my friend. Thank you so much. And
Thank you.
I've done quite a few of these, and I'm really always honored to have people on and had a chance to get to know you a little bit more. And I'm sure we'll talk offline as well. But thank you for coming on the Go for CEO channel.